going on, guys? Welcome back. Today I am doing the Yara rules. So this is right along our Soc Level 1 path. I'm trying to knock these out for you guys, and today I'm going to do the Yara. This is an easy box, but this is something that I think a lot of people take for granted. And what I mean by that is Yara rules are extremely important in cybersecurity, especially if you're doing incident response and you get good at it. So let's go ahead and get into it. The introduction really doesn't say anything, so you're not missing anything. Before we get started, guys, please hit that sub button, hit that like button. We're up to past 20K subs. Thank you guys so much for that, and I really appreciate everything you guys do. So thank you. If you guys could, check out the Patreon, check out the Discord. Someone actually just hit me up in the Discord and asked if I do CTF coaching in the Patreon, and I do. So if you guys are interested in that, that's also a feature that you guys can get in there. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Here we go. So first things first, what is a Yara rule? It's just a rule that looks for a pattern in something, right? In a file, in a text, and whatever. And it's going to, depending on what you tell it to do, it can alert on those rules. So it can tell you, hey, yes, this has XYZ in it. Hey, no, this isn't. This is really useful because you can use these to actually detect malware and things like that, because you can create a rule that detects a lot of signatures and malwares, all indicators, right? And then it says they might have changed the malware, right? That's why it passed the signature based, but they didn't change the full thing, meaning most of the time when malware changes, it changes, you know, without giving away too much how people do it, but they'll change strings in it, or they'll change variable names and things like that. Well, that's great, but they have to keep some of the stuff in there if they're going to use that attack, right? So there's ways to create that where you can actually still detect it. So this is an example. This right here prints hello world. What's it do? It literally prints hello world, right? So this would be stored as a string in your code, right? Well, you could write a Yara rule that searches for hello world and then run it, and it will tell you, hey, this file alerts on that rule. Sounds pretty simple. It is very simple, but it can get very complex. So we're going to talk about that. So why does malware use strings? Malware is just like uses strings to store textual data. Correct. You're writing malware, you have to store data, right? That's just as simple as it gets. Now, this, I don't think it actually ever said it in here, but the name of the base 16 numbering system that Yara can detect is hexadecimal. This is really huge because what do we know about things like Wireshark and packet capture and things like that? It prints it out in hexadecimal. So what does that mean to me? I can search for things in there, right? Very nice. There's all kinds of things that you can use hexadecimal, but you can use hexadecimal for a lot. So that's really nice. Would the text enter your name be a string? Yes, it's literally a string. They have it in quotes. That shows you that it's a string. When you're coding or when you're programming or even when you're just using command line and things like that, if something's in quotes, typically it's a string. Typically. Okay. So we'll go ahead and start this. This is the machine they want you to start. And you can see you can SSH in, but it just starts it up over here. You don't need to get crazy. Now, your first Yara rule. So I get a lot of, typically when people ask about Yara rules, they're asking like, how do I use them? Like, okay, what if I create a Yara rule? What do I do? You can use Yara to search for it, for one. So a lot of people are like, okay, I created a Yara rule, now what? But the other thing is a lot of incident response tooling has the capabilities for you to use Yara rules to detect things. So that's really nice because not only can you write your own, which is really, really nice, but you can also there's a lot of repositories out there of really good Yara rules, and they're going to talk about some. And you can go through those Yara rules and grab the ones that you want and put them in your incident response. And then from there on, you're going to get detected if it notices it, right? So using a Yara rule is very simple. Here's the context of how you use it, right? There's two requirements or two arguments that need to be. The rule, the file that we create. So what rule are you trying to test against? And then the name of the file, directory, or process ID that we want to try it on, right? So for instance, we're going to say Yara. We're going to say we want to use our rule. This is a rule we'd create. And then we're going to do it to whatever directory. And every file in there, it would search for whatever the rule is, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create our first rule. So the first thing is we got to make a file. You can name it some file. You can name it whatever. That's why they use touch, right? And then you're going to create a new file and name it your first rule.yar, right? So all that's doing is we're literally creating a file, and that's because we have to have something to search for. If we don't create a file, there's nothing to search for. And then we can say, hey, let's go ahead and create our first rule. Now, here is why Yara rules are so nice. For one, if you look, they're basically just JSON files, really simple, really easy to use. So you have rule, whatever the rule name is. They have here example rule. You can name it whatever you want, but typically if you name this something that makes sense to what it's detecting, it's a little bit easier because you don't have to wait till the meta tags or the descriptions. Then you have your condition. This case condition is true. Now, this might seem confusing at first because you're like, okay, condition is true. The condition can be whatever you want it to be, right? It could be if you want something to be false or whatever. So this would be the rule, but you have to tell it what do you want is true, right? So here you can see that's the actual rule. Nano, my first rule example, condition true, right? Well, now when you see them run it, right, they say Yara, my first rule.yar, some file. What are they looking for? This is where people get a little bit confused. They're saying, hey, Yara, I want you to check my first rule.yar, right? And then in that case, check if true is some file. Now, what does that mean? It means it's going to check the directory you're in right now to see if there's a file called some file, if that's true, right? So is this true? And in this case, it is. And so you'll see you get this result. Example rule, because what rule did you detect on? And then what is the actual file that matches the condition? Which in this case, it's obviously pretty obvious, right? So this wouldn't be a typical rule you do unless you're just searching for a file or something, but it can get very granular compared to this. This is very open-ended. So now let's expand on it. Let's make it a little bigger. So what can you put in here? Well, one, you can put description, meta, strings, condition, and weight. And so we're going to talk about those. So meta. This is where you can reserve it for descriptive information like the author, whatever. You can use the description in here. You can kind of just put what it's about, the date, the version number, whatever you want. And then that way, sorry guys, my eyes are messed up. That way you can actually, whenever the rule pops, you can read what is it you're doing. Because sometimes when you have Yara rules, there might be, as you'll see when we come here in a second, there might be hundreds or if not thousands that you're looking at. So here's one that's strings, right? So if you put strings in here, it's going to look for this explicit string, hello world, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, but that's also one of the most important features because that's how a lot of times you're going to detect things. Now, the rule itself, they said hello world checker. So they're checking for hello world based on the name. The strings, and you can see they made it a variable. Hello world equals hello world. That's the string that they have sitting there, right? And the condition is hello world. So the condition, you see they have to call on it, right? So they set it as a variable. They can call it. You can make this 5, 10 strings. You can make it hundreds, thousands, whatever you want. So essentially, if the file has the string hello world, the rule will match, right? Well, keep in mind that what if like I said, I'm searching for hundreds or thousands? Well, I don't want to do hello world, hundreds or thousands twice, right? So you declare all your strings, and then you can say, is the condition any of them? I want to know, are any of these in here? And you can see they used lowercase, uppercase, etc. And there's a bunch of different things that you can use here, but you can see this is a very nice way to say, hey, do we search for hello world? Well, if we search for it this way, it's only going to give us that exact string, right? It's not going to give us if it's lowercase, uppercase, if just the H is capital, whatever. You can do no case. That's also a condition that you'll see, or not a condition, but a thing that you can do, and you'll see that it works, right? So it's very similar to regular programming. You can do less than, greater than, equal to, not equal to, etc. So you can see here, hello world, but we have less than 10. What does that mean? It means I want the condition to be hello world less than 10. So if it finds hello world less than 10 times, then let me know, right? If it finds it more than that, don't let me know. Now, why would I need that? It could be a million reasons, right? The other thing you can do is and ors. So for instance, if you know that a piece of malware has to make an outside call using curl or whatever, right? Because you've seen that malware 100 times and it uses curl. Well, you could say, hey, if you see curl, right, and this malicious address or IP, then let me know. If you just see curl, don't worry about it. But if you see curl and a malicious IP, let me know, right? So you can use and, not, or, etc. So to combine multiple conditions, say you want to check if a file has a string and is a certain size. So does this file have hello world and it's less than 10 kilobytes? Now, this would be really important or really nice to see, because what if you see a file and you're getting a lot of false positives where the file has Mimikatz in it, right? And you're like, man, Mimikatz is dangerous, but apparently people use Mimikatz all the time in their documentation. Well, if you know the size of Mimikatz typically, you can say, let's say it's, I have no idea what the size is off the top of my head, but let's say it's 500 kilobytes, right? I'm sure it's much bigger than that. But if you made it anything 500 kilobytes or more, or 450 kilobytes or more, then it's going to weed out those other programs that are using that, right? Okay, so now you can see Yara failing to match the file my text because it's larger than 10 kilobytes. So if he runs it and it's larger than 10 kilobytes, meaning it doesn't match this, nothing happens. It doesn't pop up anything. But if he runs it and it is bigger than 10 kilobytes, right, then it says hello world text file checker, because that's the name of the rule that you created, right? You can see up here, hello world checker. There's the rule. So that's the name of it. And then what file popped that name, okay? And in this case, it's my text file. So the anatomy of a Yara rule, this is a really good cheat sheet. If you ever want one, download it. It's right here. There's a link to it right here. But you can see, here's some of the things you can do. So one of the things you can do is put these meta tags, right? Author, description, hash. You could put the hash in there so that you have it as a reference if you need it later. Strings. So you can see it says, one of the strings, it says hello, but it says no case and wide. What does that mean? It means you have case insensitive, so I don't care about the case, which is what you typically wouldn't care about, right? Unless your Linux machines are case sensitive, so maybe you do need it. And then wide is encoded strings with 2 bytes per character. So you want that to make sure you're not missing anything, right? Now, you can see string 1 is world, and it says full word, meaning I need it to be that full word, right? And then you can see the condition. You can make the condition all kinds of stuff. You can make it file size is less than 2,000 kilobytes, or blah, blah, any of the strings and not the hex. And they're just showing examples here. But this is a really good cheat sheet. It shows you all the different things that you can do. But you can get very granular in these, and it's really, really nice. So, whoops. And by the way, I recommend going through and creating the Yara rules in here if you want and messing around with it. I'm not going to do it because you guys can do it. There's no point in me typing what you're looking at because they already have the examples there. So now here's the different integrating with other libraries. This is one of the big features of Yara, is it integrates really well with other things. So frameworks such as the Cuckoo sandbox, which is right here. So this is a sandbox. Sandbox automates malware analysis, but it allows you to generate Yara rules based on what it's happening in the sandbox. So what does that mean? Well, really nice tool. If I run the malware in there and I know it's malware, it will create a Yara rule to detect that malware. Really nice. Great tool. Right? Python PE modules allow you to create Yara rules from various sections and elements of portable executable structure, which is really nice because it's outside the scope, so they're not going to dive into it, blah, 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 whatever. But it's standard formatting for DLL files, right? And that's why it's really important. So now examining a PE's files contents is an essential technique in malware analysis. This is because behaviors such as cryptography or warming can be largely identified without reverse engineering or execution. That's the big thing, right? The struggle people have is a lot of malware analysis nowadays. It used to be you could run it in a sandbox and you'd probably detect it, right? You can't do that nowadays very easily because a lot of things has sandbox detection, a lot of malware, because there's certain things that sandboxes do specifically that you can detect on. So you can have malware that just will sit in a sandbox and won't do anything, won't trigger anything. And then you can have, as soon as it gets on a real machine, it starts popping, right? So you want to be able to detect it without necessarily executing. Now, Yara tools. So these are tools that can create custom Yara rules, but also has repositories of Yara rules and can do different things. Like Loki here is a free open source indicator compromise scanner. So it uses Yara rules and scans based on Yara rules and lets you know, right? So you're not going Yara rule, boom, right? You're telling Loki it's got a whole repository of Yara rules and it's going to run them for you, right? Now, one thing I want to state here, because I'm really confused on this, is it says, please note that you are not expected to use this tool in this room. I don't know how you would complete this room without using the tool, and I'll show you what I mean. So, okay, so here's the different things that you can do. That's great. Then there's Thor. Thor Lite is Florian's newest multi-platform indicator and Yara scanner. Same thing. They just keep upgrading, right? Then Fenrir, again, obviously mythical themed. Third tool created by him. You guessed it. Previous two are named above. The updated version was created to address the issues. So this is the newest one, right? So the other two are great, but that's the newest one. Then you have Yaya, yet another Yara automation. So this one here, it's open source tool to help researchers manage multiple Yara rule repositories. So you can have multiple repositories. Let's say, for instance, you have a repository for Linux, or a repository for Windows, or a repository for Azure, whatever, right? And so, but you can see currently Yaya will only run on Linux systems. So these are tools that will help you, and you can see there's nothing there to do. But here's why I'm confused by it says you will not be required to use this tool. The questions require you to use the tool. So I don't understand that. Maybe it was these questions weren't always in here. I'm not sure. But okay, so as a security analyst, you may need to research various threat intelligence reports, blogs, postings, blah, blah, blah. Typically, these readings have indicators of compromise, which is true and will be shared. So rules can be created. So once you have indicators, you can create a rule to look for them. That's the whole point of Yara. It's a beautiful, beautiful tool. So now you can see here, if we go in here and we type ls, we have tools, Yara, Python, right? So we're going to go into tools, and you can see we have Loki and Yara gen. So if you're running Loki on your own system, the first command should run is update, right? Okay. Well, here's the thing. So we'll go into Loki. I don't understand how they said we weren't going to run this. I have no idea. So to run Loki, we have to use the following command. Okay. So we need to scan file 1. So if we go into, and I got to remember where it's at now. Back 1. So suspicious files. There's file 1 and file 2. Whoops. There's file 1 and file 2. So now there's file 1. You go into file 1 and you run the tool, right? Python. And we're going back to tools, Loki, and then loki.py. And then we're going to say, and the dot, by the way, the period is just simply the current directory you're in. So we run this, and it's going to say, does Loki detect the file as suspicious, malicious, or benign? You theoretically could not use this tool and still find out because there's only 3 guesses, but it'd be really hard. So you can see right here, the result is suspicious object. So it's suspicious. Now, what Yara rule did it match on? So you can see here, this is kind of everything before this warning here. Okay, everything before this warning here is just the fact that, all right, this thing froze on me. So hopefully it didn't crash. But everything before this is simply informational. We'll try and reconnect. Interesting. Okay. So we've got nothing. Okay. So we'll go do it really fast. File 1. Okay. And then, so there is it did run. So we'll run it. Okay, we're just going to run it again because you can see that that's going to be a pain in the butt to read. So what we're going to do is simply say Python tools Loki loki.py tech current directory. There we go. Now everything before this is just informational. It's telling you that it ran. That's basically what it's getting at. Everything before the warning, right? So this is what we're really looking at, is this right here, all this stuff, right? So by the way, if you press enter, you're going to exit, and then you'll have to read it the way I showed you, and that's not as fun, right? So what Yara rule did it actually match on? Well, if you look, the Yara rule, right, is web shell Metasloft, right? So that is the actual rule that detected, and it says Yara rule match web shell, right? What does Loki classify this file as? Well, you can see it classifies it as a web shell. Now, you might say, well, how did you know that? If you look, let's see if I can find where it actually was. Right here, description, web shell. So keep in mind, the rule is what is doing this. So Loki's running it, right? And it's got a list of Yara rules, and it's checking on all of them. But whoever made this rule put all this data in here. So it put the hashes in here for you, so you already have them. It put the Yara rule in here, the score, the description, all that stuff. So that's really nice, because that means we don't have to go guessing as to what this is, right? So now, based on the output, what string within Yara did it match on? Well, string 1. It's right there. That's the match. It says matches, string 1. Now, what is the name and version of this tool? Well, if you look, where is it? Right here, B374K is the name, 2.2 is the version, right? And that might not make any sense, but that's the name. It's in the first bytes here. And keep in mind, it's the name of the shell of the tool. The actual file's name is index.php, right? But the tool name is B374K. Okay, now inspect the actual Yara file, that flagged file 1. Within this rule, how many strings are there to flag this file? Well, there's only one string, so you can go and search the file if you want. There's only one string. Scan file 2. So do the same thing, but we got to go back to file 2. And we say, there it is. Okay, so keep in mind the name's different. So we will say same thing. Again, we're in the directory, so we don't have to do anything. We'll let it scan it. It runs through. Does Loki detect this file as malicious? You can see it does not. His system seems to be clean, so it's benign. Okay, cool. Turns out this is actually a malicious file. That's fine. We just didn't have a rule for it, so we have to create a rule. So what is the name and version of the web shell? This tells us to actually inspect file 2. So if we say cat index1.php, you have to do more because it's a big file. And you can see the first thing is B374K shell 323. There you go. Perfect. Okay, so now we go ahead and create Yara rules. So now this one is very interesting, because this is how most people, unless you're doing this all the time, unless you're a security researcher, this is how you're probably going to create your Yara rules, right? So what you're going to do, I'm not going to teach you guys how to use strings. You guys should already know that. But basically what they're showing here is, if you look at file 2, there is 3,580 unique strings there. That's going to be a lot to go through if you're trying to find indicators. If you're trying to go, okay, should I use this, this? You're not going to just say, only if you see 3,580 of these, alert me. And you're not going to say, if you see any of these, alert me, because there's 3,580, that's going to give you a lot of false positives. So what you're going to do is I'm not going to cat that. We're going to use yargen, okay? So yargen is in its own directory. So we go back. And I think it was in tools. Yep, yargen. And there's our yargen, right? And we're going to say, we're not going to update it, but we're going to go ahead and use our yargen on our file, and it will create a Yara rule for us based on the indicators. So we say Python, and we say yargen.py, and then we tell the directory, which in this case is home cm. I can't see because the I know you guys can't see either, but the thing's in the way. So suspicious files, file 2. Exclude good, home, seem, static, suspicious. Files, file2.yar. All right. So that is actually going to go through there and it's going to search for things. And you can see here's the breakdown of what we did. So this is the path we want to generate the rules for, which in this case was file 2. We're going to exclude good means it's going to go through a list of good known words that is used in files, and it's going to get rid of those. Now, the reason it does that is because it'll reduce false positives. And then we say, okay, this is the name and the output we want of the Yara rule, which in this case is file2.yar. So it's going to go through here. It's going to create a rule, and that rule then will look for this type of malware, right? So that's really nice. Now, Yara Analyzer as well is another tool that you can look at. Check it out. So now from within the root of the suspicious file, what command would you run to test Yara? Well, we don't need to use the whole Loki and all that stuff, right? We just need to say Yara file2.yar once it's created, right? And then give it file2 and then our index.php because it says from the root directory. And then when we run that, obviously it should detect. All right, and then once we run this, it should obviously detect because the whole thing was written for this. So what we're going to do, we're going to say Yara file2. Well, we got to go to the directory, right? Suspicious files file2.yar right there. So we say Yara file2.yar. All right, so as you can tell, we're going to go run this, and it obviously should detect because this rule was generated literally for this file. So we'll see. But so we're going to say Yara file2. I know you guys can't see it over here. Let me move. It doesn't matter. You don't need to see it. It's literally this one right here. We're going to say Yara file2.yar index PHP. I don't know why it's not auto completing over here. .php. Okay, and we're gonna say, hey, run it, and you can see it obviously did it almost instantly. It said home, CM, Niantic, suspicious file, file2 index. That's the name of the rule, and it flagged the file, right? So very quickly it figured it out. So yes, it did. Now copy the Yara rule you created into the Loki signature directory. Now, am I going to do this? No. You guys can do this if you want. The reason I'm not going to do this is if I just created the Yara rule and proved it detects, why do I need to go use Loki to prove that the Yara rule works? We just proved it. So if you guys want to do this, this is a good thing you guys can do. Check it out. But it's not something I need to show you how to do. You take the file, the rule, copy it into the directory, and there you go. You do the same thing and run it with Loki. So would it detect? Yeah, it would detect. Why? It's the same thing. It's literally designed, and I know what they're doing. They're showing you the point, right? But was the name of the variable for the string that it matched on. So if you guys run this, if you guys go through and actually copy the file over, right? So we can do that. So we'll just remember where this is. Okay, and I lost connection. So let's see if okay. Okay, so we did get it. All right. So anyway, so if you copy the file over here, then what you're going to do is then go through and run the loki, and you're going to see that it pops for the actual rule. Well, nice thing for us is we know where the rule is, right? So we can actually say cat file2.yar. Maybe. I don't know why this thing is like not doing anything I want. So we can go through and you can see all the rules, right? Well, if you go to strings, so we could go to, let's say, grep strings, right? Well, that didn't work the way I thought it would, but either way, you could go through and find the strings that's looking for. But if you go do it with Loki, feel free. It's just going to say, yep, it did, but it's going to show you what it popped on, what was the actual alert, and that's the name of it right there is Zepto. So it's going to do that. And you can see here, it'll tell you, look at the first one, right? So you can do that if you want, but just if you want to, CP is the copy command. You just copy it into the signatures directory. So if we go back, and you say right there, and you go to there's all your Yara rules. Now you just copy and you go, and I believe it was suspicious. See, that's why I didn't want to do it, because it's not auto tabbing, completing any of my stuff, and I don't know why. So it was suspicious files, and then file2.yar. Yeah, that wasn't it. Oh, guess you gotta tell it where to copy, right? So, and then we'll just copy it to file2.yar. It doesn't really matter what you file it. Yep, and you can see that was not correct, so we'll just do this. Suspicious files. And it's because I spelled suspicious wrong, because I did it like 15 times. Suspicious. Okay, there we go. So now it's in there. Now we can go all the way back, and I know I did this the long way because I thought, you know, I'm not gonna do this, whatever. And I know I'm blocking the commands for you guys. You don't need to see my commands for this one. All the commands I'm running are in here, and I'll show you guys. So if you go here, well, the problem is it keeps getting rid of my things. So all you gotta do is go back to the Loki one. So I'm showing you guys where all the commands are, so you don't have to worry about seeing my commands. If you go to Loki and you run this same thing, where is it? Right here. You say Python, and I gotta remember where it's at. Tools, Loki, Loki.py. Well, we've gotta, it would make sense if we go into the right directory. cd suspicious files, file2, and now we'll say Python tools Loki, Loki.py. And this is the longest possible way I could have done this, so I apologize for this, but I wanted to show you guys that it worked. And now you can see, if you remember the first one we did on file 2, it said it was benign, there was no problem. Now you can see it's suspicious. Okay, great. And now you can see the string. It shows string 2, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if we can find where it actually shows it. There's the string right there, Zepto. So there's your string, Zepto. All right, and then inspect the Yara rule, how many strings were generated. So how many strings total, and we would have to go look at the Yara rule, which I'm not going to do. But if you look at the Yara rule, there's 20 strings generated total. So go to the Yara rule that it created. I showed you guys how to open it. Go to that Yara rule and just count the amount of times or the amount of strings under the strings section. So one way you could do this is you could go to, I'm not going to go do it now, but go to the Yara rule, just do a grep for strings and just do the next 20 lines or something like that, or 30, whatever. And then one of the conditions to match on the Yara rule specifies file size. The file size has to be less than X amount. So all you got to do, look through that Yara rule and you'll find where it says it has to be less than 700 kilobytes. And again, I know you guys probably want me to do it. There's no reason for me to show you guys how to open a file. That stuff, this is the stuff that you guys should be using me as a guide, not as just copying my answer. So I want you guys to go through it a little bit. So just open the file, look at the Yara rule. It's in the format they showed you already, where it's going to be less than 700 kilobytes. Now this one is Valhalla supercharger detection, right? Online Yara feed. So this is right here. We actually have it set up. And Valhalla is a good tool. It basically allows you to search for things, and it will show you rules that are already created for those indicators, which is really nice because you don't have to go generate a rule or anything, right? So enter the SHA-256 of hash of file 1 into Valhalla. Well, the nice thing is file 1 is right here. So I'm just typing in SHA-256 sum, and I'm doing index, which is the file. And here is the SHA-256 file hash. So that's all you gotta do to copy it. Go here, paste it. And then there's all the Yara rules that they built for it already. So you don't have to go make any more. What is the name of the first Yara rule to detect it? This one was a little bit confusing because when they say first, I'm thinking the first one they're listing, but they're actually talking about the first one date-wise. So it's this one, Web Shell Meta Sloth. Oh, I was wrong again. Where is it? Did I do the wrong file? Oh, yep, I did do the wrong file. That was file 1. They're asking about file 2. So enter the SHA-256 hash. Is the file attributed to an APT group? And the answer is yes. Let's see. You can see you could do some research on it and find that it is attributed to an APT group. Now this one, you just got to do the same thing we just did, but with file 2. So we just go back and we say cd file 2, and we do the SHA-256, but we want, this time it's the file in file 2, right? So now we've got that file, and you can see the hash is different. So make sure you do it with the new hash. Hopefully I didn't just copy the same hash. Nope, I didn't. Okay. And then here's the one they're looking for, the one with the earliest date. So I apologize, I got those mixed up. Now, examine the information from file 2 on VirusTotal. The Yara signature matches from what scanner? Now, this one is going to confuse you because if you're like me, you've used VirusTotal enough times that I just went to VirusTotal and put the hash in, and it does not work. They want you to talk, they're talking about this specific one. So you go right here to VT, VirusTotal. And it's actually looking for this rule, right? And that's from Thor APT scanner, right? So that's how you get that. So don't just go to VirusTotal and put the hash in, because that's what I did. So now enter the SHA-256 hash of file 2 in VirusTotal. Did every AV detect? Nope. I don't know if I've ever found a malware that every single one ever detected it. Now, besides PHP, what other extensions recorded for this file? So here, you're going to go to the VirusTotal, put the hash in, go to details, and go down here, and you have to look, but there's a lot of extensions here. exe is the one they're looking for. There's HTMLs, too many characters, there's text, there's sys, there's up here there's actually an APK, whatever. They're looking for the exe one, just heads up. What JavaScript library is used by file 2? So this one, you're actually going to go to, where was it? Back to the, right here. You're going to go to details, or not details, where was it? I think that you actually go here, I'm sorry, and you're going to go to the GitHub page because that's the reference to the file. Go to the GitHub page, and all you got to do is scroll down a little bit. You see right there, Zebto JavaScript. So Zebto is your library. is this Yara rule in the default Yara file Loki used to detect these types of hack tools? Obviously it's not, because, oh, I'm sorry, nope, they're asking if this specific Yara rule is in there. You can just go search it. Just go to the signature file or directory that I showed you and search for that one. It's not there. So just a little spoiler alert, you won't find it. So they're showing you how to search in Loki and how to add tools to it. And that's pretty much it for Yara. Now, I know this one doesn't seem like it's that beneficial, but if you go through it and you actually do these Yara rules, what I do when I first learn more stuff is I would create files on here, like using nano and touch and everything else, and I would go through and try and detect my files, put them somewhere in the operating system, try and detect them, use strings, use indicators, use whatever, and try and detect them. Yara gen is also something that I use quite a bit. Generate your Yara rules based on whatever, and then that way you don't have to worry about it again. But let me know what you guys think. This is a very good box to learn because Yara rules can be integrated. They didn't talk about it much here, but they can be integrated into other tools, incident response tools, and that's where real value lies. Because if I get something that comes in, I can generate a Yara rule, put it in my SIM or my alerting tool or whatever I have, and then boom, I don't have to worry about it again. It will alert me every time from now on. So let me know what you guys think. Hopefully this helps you guys, and hope you guys have a great day.